Hi, I'm Keith Howe, Managing Director of Ranges Valley. We are a major feedlot operations. We specialise in feeding cattle, long-fed cattle, 40,000 head capacity, and we're based here in Ranges Valley in Glen Innes, up in the northern New South Wales Tablelands, which is a very picturesque part of New England. Our elevation is around 1,000 metres above sea level. We normally get very cool, cold winters, but the converse of that is our summers are quite mild, and therefore the overall climate conditions are conducive for long feeding of cattle, and that's what we major in. So Ranges Valley as a business, we market the sales of our product to over 50 markets around the world. We specialise in trying to seek out the most premium markets across the globe, and quite interested in understanding our livestock production systems, how we look after cattle in our operations, from our feeding program, animal welfare, are all major parts of interest to our end users around the world. So we were very conscious of wanting to continue to improve our position in this area, and the installation of the Ridgeback shed has given us a really good environment to test this type of concept where we can cover half the pens with a permanent structure, which I feel really is ticking best practice, because we're giving cattle the options of either being under a permanent structure or being able to step outside into the elements, whether that be into the rain or into the sunshine, which we see quite often in the mornings, the cattle coming out from underneath the shed, standing in the sunshine as the day starts. I suppose when you think about dags on cattle, the muddier the pen, generally speaking, the more dags that a cattle, an animal can accumulate in that environment. You know, very early days yet, but we are hopeful that a cattle underneath this structure, and we'll see cattle hopefully accumulating less dags throughout their time. And you know, dags are becoming quite a costly part of production, unfortunately, when you present cattle to meatworks. So the penalties that apply now on daggy cattle at meatworks is quite significant. If you say, well, we're going to tackle those dags by washing cattle before they go to the meatworks, then you've got to deal with the stress and labour units to do that. So any benefit in this area here will also add to that cost-benefit analysis that we're trying to build up. So we spoke with various companies that provided permanent structure, and we started talking to Entegra. We were very enthusiastic with the design of the Ridgeback shed, and you know, the design elements of how cattle can stand in underneath that shed, and there's enough air velocity to dry those cattle whilst they're in that type of environment. You know, we saw that it was probably the best solution out there in the industry. You know, we saw that that matched what Ranges Valley brands are all about. You know, we do a lot of work in trying to produce the highest quality product in the marketplace, and our operations match that. You know, we see the Entegra shed as part of that solution to provide shelter structure for our cattle within this environment here. Working with Entegra, we were very happy with the program once we locked into the design, and they were very open to some of the things that we wanted to solve in the design. We know through being involved in our operation every day that there's certain things that you want to try to limit in design, major uprights against posts or against bunks, trying to reduce the amount of poles that are sticking out of your pen. All these elements, we were trying to get the best compromise for our operation whilst meeting the shed design, and I think, you know, Entegra listened to some of that feedback and reflected that in the drawings, and the shed was all prefabbed and basically come on site, and the construction was very straightforward. So we were very happy with the outcome and the time frames to do it.